this country has, first and foremost, has never known a decade uninterrupted, of stability. Beginning 1980, there are series of violence, kukurahunde, politically motivated violence, with one sole intention, and this is a pattern of power retention and accumulation of the same. And at the center of the violence that happened in Matabeleland was the agenda to create a de facto one-party state. We move to a period of 2000, 2002, violence, 2005, violence, 2008, extreme violence, a lot of dead bodies on account of politics, 2018, 2016, in fact, 2018, recently 2022. So what we see is a state that uses and unleashes violence when it is threatened by possible democratic breakthrough. So there is a correlation proven scientifically by empirical evidence that Zanu Pf is a violent political organization. That Zanu, when it is threatened at the level of superior logic, popularity, and electoral defeat, it unleashes violence. And I would use the quotation by Mr. Mnangagwa. He says, when Mugabe accepted defeat, I personally managed to ensure that we correct that. And how did they correct that? It was the unleashing of the military and the command of the political elite in Zanu, when we had what was recorded in history as the long sleeve, half sleeves, and thousands of people died in that runoff. Were displaced and were injured. So what we saw in Kwekwe is where political contestation, a political movement that had suffered banning, suffered unleashing of all laws against its existence in terms of freedom of speech and gathering. The only solution unleashed by the political elite, the Kwekwe violence, was instigated, championed, and directed by the then Minister of State Security, Muda, and Al-Shabaab, which is a paramilitary wing controlled by a Zanu Pf Politburo member and a minister in government. And that was unleashed at the background of a possible threat to its electoral defeat in Kwekwe Central. And how Zimbabweans have reacted to this violence was banish Zanu Pf by losing that seat, proving for me beyond any scientific doubt that violence is not a solution, that violence does not work. But now Zanu has not used violence against its perceived opponents, but also it has been a tool internally. You hear a minister and a spokesperson, then Mutswango of Zanu Pf, clamoring about their military coup. And you know what happened to the house of their then minister, Jonathan Moore? Live bullets fired on the basis of a possible threat to its hegemon. So you see that the use of violence is a method. It doesn't happen without a method. It happens at a certain historic epoch when the center is failing to hold, when it has been defeated internally in its processes by what was known as G40. Zanu unleashed its only last tool in the show, violence. When it was threatened in this by-election by the emergence of Yellow Baby, by massive political turnout and rejection of its puppet political organization in the name of MDCT and its various forms and facets, the only tool that was unleashed by Zanu is terror. And you can see, and I'm happy that my brother is an intellectual, the submissions, any pronunciation by head of state and government is a policy position. So when they say in their political programs, Kombai Murove, is philosophizing, is communicating a policy position from the center, that all Zanu Pf structures are thereby marshaled, commandeered, and instructed by the head of state and government that any possible dissent, because a demonstration that was responding to is codified in the constitution of this country, is a guaranteed right to demonstrate and petition. But the solution given by head of state Unfortunately so, is that combined role. So the abuse now, that's why you see, as I conclude, the conflation of the securocrats, the conflation of the police with Zanu Pf. If you went to the violence that happened when our president went to Mashingo, was that the first roadblock is manned by police officers. You are allowed to pass. You are unleashed into a very violent, brutal second roadblock manned by Zanu Pf thugs. You see, so the abuse of state institutions to make sure that violence is used with a specific model and method that we see by Zanu Pf, but only if power is threatened, which for me is a worrying cause, because 2023 presents a possible